This is A Geek Leader. Hey guys, John Rauda back again with episode 48 of A Geek Leader, and today I have a special guest on the show, Richard Taylor. Richard Taylor is a Microsoft MVP. He's also a vice president of software development, and we talk basically about his leadership journey. We talk a little bit about how the path up in management isn't always constant. Sometimes you bounce back and forth between getting your hands dirty and being technical and getting into leadership. And we talk about the attitude of a servant leader, and it's a really good conversation. I think you guys will enjoy it. So give it up for Richard Taylor. All right, and we're live. I'm here with Richard Taylor. And Richard, before we get started, I just want to ask if you could tell the audience a little bit about yourself, your history, and how you got started in technology and got to where you are today.
Yeah, that's a good question. Hello, everybody. So I started my career actually when I was about 14 years old. My mother actually bought me a computer, Commodore 64. And so back in that day, it came out with a lot of games and things like that, but also it had a programming aspect to it. So it had Visual Basic. And if you were truly into the Commodore 64, you can buy like a little cartridge and write assembly language, which actually I asked for a Christmas present. And so I started teaching myself programming at that point. And I programmed for, at least on my own, through high school. I actually did take one computer programming class in high school, but it was more related to sort of math type things. But then eventually I was hooked, and I was like, okay, well, I can make a career out of this. So I went to college and learned computer science, and then got to work. And I started out actually not developing. I spent some time as a network engineer. So I was working for a large bank, helping them, and maybe some folks remember Novell Networks, which
yes.
That I was a Novell network engineer, systems engineer. And I did a lot of Novell networks, but I still had a passion for software development.
I'm actually Novell certified from back in the day. It's probably expired. Probably expired a decade ago, but
exactly, same here. I was Novell certified, so so I did that for a while. That's how I got in the door, career wise, and then the passion for software development was still there. And eventually, I landed a role as a developer, and from that point on, it's sort of been, the rest is history. I've been in some level of development throughout my, that part of my career up until now. And eventually, I ended up leading a team and learned some hard lessons about leading developers. And now I'm working, at a company. I'm leading the engineering department, and we're doing some great things, and we're having some fun. So, but I still code. So I still go around and I speak on coding, but also develop software as well. Not only for the company I work for, but also on my own. I can't lead the keyboard. Let's just say that.
I understand that completely. Your story is very similar. I was actually telling someone yesterday. I was talking about Commodore 64 because that was my first computer as well. And I said, the first game that I ever bought was actually like a book. It was a pamphlet. And it was, you had to open up and type in all the Visual Basic code and like hit run, and then you played the game. Yeah. Like it wasn't a cartridge. There was no input. You had to type it all out.
Yep. Yeah. I remember typing out programs from a magazine. The magazines back in the day would actually have the code that you could type in and actually run the program. So I remember doing the same thing.
Yeah, I remember that too. That's pretty funny. So you mentioned something about doing stuff on the side, or you have to stay coding. I'm a big proponent of side hustling, if you will, and doing things on the side. And I encourage my team that I manage to do that as well. I built some mobile apps on the side kind of to keep myself fresh after I've got into the more management role where I didn't have the opportunity to dabble with code. What kind of value do you see in people doing things, on their own?
I think it's very valuable. A lot of times what folks end up with is a situation where their skill set is basically scoped to their job. On a day-to-day basis, obviously you have a specific problem to solve for a company, your employer, but it might not necessarily give you the opportunity to explore other things. And so I think the benefits are twofold. One, you have the ability to expand your knowledge by tinkering around with those new things and coming up with little pet projects and whatnot. But also, you might learn something that you can actually bring back to the job and kind of help you and your team basically expand and get better. So definitely tinkering is a very good thing.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I know when I was managing a web development team, and our CIO, this is like in 2010, maybe it was 2009, our CIO came up to us or to me and said, hey, we're going to start doing mobile development. And that's going to be under your group as well. No one on my team had ever built a mobile app, so I thought, well, I'm going to start tinkering, and I started building like some mobile games, some iPhone and Android apps. I think I didn't build Android for a couple years after that, but it was mostly iPhone apps just so I could get the process down. And I was able to take everything that I learned building something on the side, and bring it into the office. And, all of a sudden I had experience with something that was new to everybody else on the team.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I do the very similar thing. I never really worked at a company where I had the responsibility of building a mobile application. And so it always piqued my interest, at least for mobile development. It's like, how's this done? And different platforms and devices and all that sort of stuff. And so when I started looking into it, then Xamarin, I came across like, oh, this is pretty cool. I can leverage my C# skills and do some cross-plat stuff. Not the exact same experience as creating apps for each of the target platforms directly, but at least I crossed a hurdle rather quickly in terms of basically getting some experience under my belt related to that, given that there was a familiar tool set, tool chain, and language. So it's been pretty cool so far. I've been enjoying it.
Yeah, that sounds good. Tell me about your first time having to lead people, either being a team lead or a manager or something in that aspect where people, it wasn't just like a leadership, as your peers, but you actually had responsibility over some folks. What was that like?
Sure. It was very scary at first. So I was actually, I was only 24 when it was the first time I had that responsibility. I basically was in charge of a technical system or technology system that an organization was using for their recruiting effort. And so I had a team of, I was a technical person. I was actually the lead technical person on the team, but I also had to lead some junior technical folks and also some support personnel as it relates to not only the app, but kind of what we were doing with the system. And so I had never had any experience prior to that, but I sort of learned as I went. I definitely made some mistakes, but it was very it was an interesting situation in the fact that I didn't feel like I knew what I was doing yet. There was a certain appeal and satisfaction to actually getting things done and working as a team to kind of make things happen. And I think that's where sort of the bug would, to lead people kind of bit me. I guess the rest has kind of been history since that point. But definitely scary the first time.
Yeah. I like to tell people that the first time I felt like I was a good developer, and then I got put in charge of people, and I was pretty terrible at it. I didn't know what I was doing. I thought I could just code people, but it didn't quite work that way. So when you got into there, you said the bug kind of bit you. Was it kind of a steady path, just continuing to do that, or did you kind of bounce back and forth into the tech side, into the code, or did you stay outside of into management? I know you said you still dabble with code. Still, you're still involved in that realm. So what was that journey like?
I kind of bounced back and forth. To be fair. At times earlier in my career, I kind of thought at times that, the people management part and just dealing with people and making sure that, not only I was handling my responsibilities, but I was on top of them making sure that they handled their responsibilities was, challenging and something that I just didn't want to do at times. But then I realized after, I guess, getting along in my career that it's really, you're as a leader, your, I guess, satisfaction and actually motivation to continue to lead people squarely, falls into the realm of, do you have the right people, on your team that you're leading? I found later on in my career, and I'm pretty adamant about it at this point, is that we have to have the right people on the team. If you have the incorrect people on the team, then there's all these other things that you have to sort of lead people through, and it becomes that extra burden. But I made all those mistakes early, learned from those mistakes, and now, actually leading people, while it has its challenges, it's definitely not as challenging as it used to be when I was early, at least earlier on in my career.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that once you get experience, it becomes a little bit easier. Did you have? Was it as hard for you as it was for me to kind of give that negative feedback the first couple of times you had to do that?
Oh man, that was tough. So not only the negative feedback, but even the first time you had to let somebody go. That's it. It definitely, it is not easy, regardless of how much experience you have. But what gets easier is how you conduct the conversation, and you get better at giving the feedback to the point where you're not demotivating someone, but you're presenting it in such a way that here's a weakness, or here's a shortcoming, but it's also an opportunity for you to basically deal with that shortcoming, and improve. And the first time you have that conversation, you're sort of nervous about how's this person going to react. What if you go through the what if scenarios, and you just don't know what to do. But over time, at least that part of the conversation gets a lot easier. But it's never easy. I mean, if you telling someone that they're not performing is a very difficult situation. And my advice is that kind of each time you have to do it, just pay attention to how you conducted yourself, but also pay attention to how the person reacted, and look for opportunities to improve in the future if you ever have to do it again.
Yeah. I always found this. I don't know. I always felt like super nervous and super upset about it whenever I had to have those conversations. And then when I started to think about it, is what does the other person feel like, and try to use empathy in a tactical way to kind of get past that.
Absolutely.
So going through that path, what's kind of like what are some of the more difficult things that you've had to do as a leader, and how has that made you a better leader? Today? Right.
So I think the toughest spot I was in and role I was in terms of a leader, actually it's very similar to what I do today. I had an engineering department that I was responsible for, and there was multiple roles within that engineering department. But the sole focus of my department was to get the software out the door, get it delivered, right? And so my first run at it in a significant way, I had a very good team, very good players, and so as things kind of progressed, on any team, regardless, no matter how good the company is, no matter how good the manager might be, you're going to lose people for various reasons, whether it's personal or the career, whatever, and so being the technical person that I am. When in this particular role, when that happened, I decided that rather than focusing on hiring a replacement, I actually rolled up my sleeves and did the work. And that doesn't scale, right?
Yeah. So how did that work out for you?
Yeah, that doesn't scale, right?
Yeah.
And so what ended up happening was, and I was I was not happy. I'm not going to say I was miserable, but I was not happy because my day job was leading the team. My night job was doing all the jobs that I didn't focus on getting filled. Um, and so while I was, thought I was doing the right thing, in actuality, I was not doing the right thing by the team or by the company. I really should have focused on actually getting the resources we needed to be successful. And that was a hard lesson to learn.
Yeah, that sounds like an issue of perspective. I know a lot of times I fall into this problem too, where I see there's a short-term response that I could have. I could start working on the code. I could start working on the things that are immediately in front of me. But in doing so, I'm jeopardizing the long-term effectiveness of the team by not focusing on getting the right people in there.
Right.
Yeah, that's a tough one to learn too, isn't it?
And then time wise, I mean, I wasn't spending a lot of time with my family because I was always working, and it just spiraled out to the point where I had to stop and think, okay, what's wrong with this situation here? How did I get here? And again, my natural being a technical leader who can code and do all the things that his or her team can do, you can easily fall into that trap of, oh, okay, well, I'll just do it. Okay, well, I'll just do that. And then you realize, wait a minute, you have like several hats on at this point, and it's just not really helping anyone, and you're really hurting yourself. And so that lesson learned was a very, very tough one. But I realize today that, you kind of, as a leader, you have to continually ask yourself the question, what is the most valuable thing that I can bring to my team? And be quite honest, I live by this at this point, and that is my job as a technical leader is to hire the right people and have them on the team. Give them what they need, meaning tools, training, whatever. Get them what they need from that standpoint. Remove any obstacles, and then just get out of the way. Let them go.
Yep.
If you have the right people on the team, they make it happen. They figure it out. They're not coming to you for every single item or decision because they're empowered to make those decisions because you stay out of their way.
Yeah, that's a very agile kind of approach there. Very, very Scrum-like, I guess you'd say.
Yeah, it is. It is. That is a very good lesson from Scrum, and it's something that I apply. And I actually tell the folks that report to me, and even the folks that don't directly report to me, it's very clear. They understand that I am not there to technically do their job. I am there to assist them. And so that they can do their job. And so, I don't get bombarded every day with questions about, okay, this little decision, that little decision. They're empowered to do it. And if you make a mistake, you make a mistake. We learn from the mistakes. We discuss how it could have been done better. And then we move forward and we just don't make the mistake again. And it works wonders when you get to that point.
Yeah, I think you hit on something right there that I think is really important for a lot of the younger leaders out there is the how you handle your mistakes. A lot of people see mistakes as being a negative thing, but it sounds like what you're saying that's the opportunity to learn.
Absolutely, mistakes are an opportunity. So even when decisions are being made. So a good example would be. Let's say one of my teammates come to me and say, hey, here's what I'm thinking. Here's the idea. Wanted to bounce it off you. What do you think? And, I might give my opinion, but there's sometimes I might, say, well, think about that decision. And even though I might have already experienced it or have actually walked through that process and actually made that mistake. If it's something that's not risky and I don't think it's going to demotivate them, then I might actually let them make that mistake because they can learn from it. And then when they come back and say, now that I think about it, I really should have probably went this route, and I learned from my mistake. And it really enforces the decision making process that to have confidence in your decisions, just have an attitude that, hey, if I make this mistake, I can actually learn from the mistake and get better. And that's perfectly fine. Now, there are times when, it is risky, or it could, be detrimental to the organization. And sometimes you just have to say, hey, here's the right decision based upon my experience. I've been here, done that. And given the magnitude of the decision, that you're going to give some direction. But I find that less often in my role right now than in the past. I really have been trying to delegate and give people opportunities to make decisions and learn from their mistakes and get better, because it's just better for everybody.
No, I agree 100%. And there's a lot of times where it's like I have to bite my tongue. I have to really hold back. I'm just, saying here's what I would do, and just say, let's let them run it. And every now and then, maybe it's more often than I give people credit for, but they'll surprise me and they'll do something that's better than I would have done it. And I didn't know that was capable, that was possible.
Well, you bring up an interesting point, right? So as a leader, one of the things that we cannot do is be fearful of someone that is actually on your team knowing more than you.
Yeah.
That is okay.
That's actually a good thing.
That's great, actually.
Yeah.
Because, I don't have to know everything. I'm not going to even try to know everything. Some, especially some, inexperienced leaders feel like they have to be like the center of gravity for everything that's going on around, their team. And that's just, you're setting yourself up for such an unpleasant experience when, your team can't move forward because you're on vacation, or your team can't move forward because you're at an offsite meeting or some, conference that you went to. I actually speak very highly of my team, because my team will release the software. They release a major version of the software, and I'm not even there. And
that's confidence there.
Heck, but I'm not saying that happened day one, but we have, a working relationship team-wise that, I have real confidence in that they're going to hit it and do it right. And, I was recently at a senior leaders meeting with the rest of my org, and we all get this email saying, hey, the software here's our new version. We just published it for our customers. And, hooray, we were celebrating, and, a few folks in the room were looking at me like, if they release the software, you're not there. It's like, I don't have to be there for them to release the software. That's their role, not mine. I'm just leading, helping them be able to do that effectively. And they were like, okay, that's pretty awesome. I'm like, yeah, well, that's what happens when you hire good people, give them what they need, and just, get out of the way and let them perform. Yeah,
no, that's really good. So I want to take this a little bit in maybe a different direction, but you're hiring good people. How do you? I know it's not overnight. You don't overnight trust someone that you hired, but how do you find that right person that fits your team? Are you focused more on the skill sets that they have, or the team dynamics, or a little bit of both? What is it?
I really it's more important for me to make sure that the team dynamic is correct, and the aptitude to learn. Those are the things that I focus on.
Yeah, I think that ability to learn. I've never heard anybody actually say that that's what they're looking for, but that nails it, I think, right there.
Oh yeah, I would not hire the most technically knowledgeable person on a problem that we're working on, and they can't work with people, or they just do not fit the team dynamic. That is a worse situation in my book. The only time that I've ever put skills over team dynamic and ability to learn is if I'm specifically hiring a contractor for a temporary assignment that is mostly isolated from the rest of the team. Then I'll go for more skills over team dynamic. But I protect my team like I protect my family when it comes to hiring people. I want to talk to them, so I phone screen them personally. Every single person, I meet them face to face. I won't hire anybody unless I meet them face to face. I mean, Skype's cool and all, but I know you're going to sit across the table from me and we're going to have a talk. Not necessarily this deep technical talk about some, hidden feature in C# or something like that. No, it's more about how you think and how you process and how you figure things out and know how to know when to interact with folks and ask questions. And those are the types of things that are way more important to me than or you're expert in X technology.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think there's just something about that body language that you pick up on, and hearing the actual tone of their voice, looking at the person and talking to them, that makes a big difference, I think, when you're understanding the team dynamics portion of it.
Absolutely. And, I could be, here's the other piece too. So that's my perspective. That's like my involvement. But unless it's some extreme circumstances, I won't hire someone unless the team approves. So even if I am like we need to hire this person because they're a perfect fit, and if they come in and they meet, we have folks come in and they interview, at least currently have folks come in and they interview for a few hours with several of our teammates. If, in our debrief, they're not excited about that person joining the team, even though I might be, then I will go along with the team because I'm more concerned about the team dynamic and folks being able to work with other folks than necessarily, my individual incitement of, one person. So.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot to say about that. When you bring people in and the team actually has buy-in, I think they're going to work a little bit harder, even if it's subconsciously, to make sure that person fits in and that person gets what they need and that they're welcomed. Whereas if the team isn't excited about the hire, they might not be as welcoming, without even meaning to.
Well, that's true. And also, and I didn't mention this earlier, but, there's a sense of ownership from the team members. So, I'm not the only person responsible for the team. We all are responsible for the team. Mm-hmm. And so when you start to allow your team members to engage in, some of these major decisions in terms of, who joins the team, they take, that's a sense of ownership that they start to feel. And they also feel like that they have their opinion matters, particularly when we're talking about adding new people, which is very important. I much rather people on my team excited about going to work and working with the people that's on their team, rather than someone, let's say they love the work but they dread working with that one or two persons on the team because they just can't get along. I mean, you lose productivity from that individual or at least multiple individuals when you have that situation.
No, I think you're absolutely right. Having that buy-in of the team and that responsibility that they feel for that role, and being excited to work with those people is super, super, super important. I know when I was an early manager, I had a really high turnover rate, and I think a big portion of that is people weren't excited to work with me because I didn't know how to manage people. I was digging into the code too much, kind of like that what you were saying. You were trying to get in there, and I wasn't focusing on the people around me really at all. I was that ignoring boss. I just kind of ignored what they did, and I just I wanted to just get into the code and not worry about the people, which made people not excited to come in and work with me.
Right. Understood.
So part of being a leader, especially on a technology team where tech changes all the time, you have to stay current and continue to learn. How is it that you manage to do that with all your other responsibilities?
That's a very good question. Jokingly lack of sleep. No,
don't we all?
Honestly, the way I keep up is basically I do spend a fair amount of my time during the week on various pet projects and research and things like that. One of the things that I do is I speak at conferences on various technologies, some related to work, some not related to work, and having that commitment and obligation to present is another driving force that causes me to put in the time. So what I try to do is really time box things between Monday and Friday, and basically, those are the busiest times, in my household. Everybody kind of has something going on, and so. When I get home from work, we try to have dinner, and then I'm back in my office, and I'm learning and working on the next thing until a certain time, and then we crash and we do it again. But then I try to keep it within the week so that the weekends, it's family time and all that sort of stuff, and not allow things to carry over. It's tough. It really is tough to fit everything in, but anything that's good or great, it's going to require some time, and so in order to stay current and be relevant, that you just kind of have to do it.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I like what you said about time boxing, your efforts so that you leave that time for your family, and I think that it's so important to have that break, because if you work all the time, your work's going to be less effective, in my opinion, than if you have that time off where you shut down work and you pick up home.
Yeah, well, that's a good thing about people generally, there are pros and cons about working remote or from home and coming in the office and all that sort of stuff. And when you work from home, you have to sort of put in a few more restrictions, because it's easy to make that break when you work in the office, right? When you get in your car to drive home, or you ride the train, or however you transport yourself from work to home, that there's that break, right? And it allows you to transition. When you're at home, it's easy to work till 6 o'clock or 6:30 or even 7 from starting at like 8 in the morning, because you're trying to recapture that commute time. But it doesn't mean that you need to recapture it as work time. It's
That's
just
right.
that. So you have to be a little careful. But yeah, it's a natural break. I mean, the break is important.
Yeah, I agree 100%. So when it comes to learning, do you prefer like online videos, books? And you mentioned conferences, which that's where I pick up a lot of my stuff. It's going to conferences, listening to other people, and I found that you get a lot of information in between the sessions. Just by talking to the people that are at the conference, and being somewhat of an introvert, that's hard for me, but I get a lot of value from that. What about you?
So in terms of learning style, I think my primary learning styles are reading and actually tinkering, or like building something. But everybody learns different. Some people learn from classrooms, some people learn from videos. It really depends. And like one of the things that I focus on, like for my team and going forward teams, it's something I learned is that everybody has a different learning style. So one size doesn't fit all. You might have some of your team want to watch videos and all the things that we just mentioned. And so when it comes to like training plans and things like that, I kind of let the individuals drive that. The medium is irrelevant. It's what works for them. In terms of conferences, just to address that just a second, conferences are unique. I agree with you 100% that, while the sessions are great, you do pick up some information, particularly what I'm looking for is not necessarily like a deep dive or a deep understanding from a session. Those are more I need to take a closer look at this or go do some research later. But I cannot stress enough the importance of, what we call the hallway track, where you're just like you said, you're talking to various people in the hallway about this problem, that problem, this new tech, and you learn so much more coming out of that introvert shell and talking to people. And quite frankly, the speakers, they're really no different than anyone else, to be honest with you. They just spent, some time putting together some slides and talking about something they love. And they will be glad to talk to you more about either that topic or some other topic in the hallway afterwards. So they are approachable.
Yep, you're absolutely right. I know after I give a talk somewhere, I love for people to hang around and talk and chat between the sessions. But yeah, I think you're 100% right with that. What do you think are the most important skills that a new tech leader would need today?
Um, I really subscribe to, and it's an older concept, but the whole servant leader concept. I really take that to heart. So when when I'm on the job working with my team, I really go after what can I do to make their jobs easier. And it could be something as simple as sharing an idea of how something might work better if they, tried it,
Mm-hmm.
to getting them, maybe a tool that they need, or even connecting them with someone that they should be connected with to kind of get something done. Um, when I look at my day, it's all about my teammates and helping them achieve their objectives. And I kind of take it to the highest level. So, any new leader, it's really all about the people you lead. It's less about what you do as an individual contributor and way more about what your team can do and helping them achieve their contributions. Your life will be so much easier, and you'll have such a happier team, and you will see some remarkable things if you have the right people, which is very important. And you just get out of their way and let them do what they do best, and you'll be totally amazed. And so I think just taking on that servant leader type of approach is at least a very good approach, particularly for new leaders.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I think being a servant leader is probably one of the most effective ways to get to get buy-in from your team, to build the team that's most effective, to make your job easier and better in the long run.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So I want to be conscious of your time, and I really appreciate having you on. If people have questions and they want to reach out to you, what's the best way they can get in touch with you or learn more about you?
Sure. So the first thing you can do is you can go to my blog. It's at www.writeandcode.com. That's RIGHTINCOD.com. I have a contact me page on there. You can click on that and send me a question or a comment. You can also reach me at the equivalent email address at rtaylor@writeandcode.com. I'm also a pretty avid user of Twitter. So you can find me on Twitter at writeandcode. I tweet quite a bit. I answer direct messages and all that good stuff. So I'm pretty present on there. And then finally, you can find me on LinkedIn. Richard Taylor in the Charlotte area. You'll see me pop up. I'm the guy with the beard, and
it's a great beard, by the way.
Thanks. You can connect with me there as well. I get a fair amount of messages there.
All right, thanks so much. I appreciate it.
No problem.